Welcome back to Election Now. Today I'm doing an election prediction between Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump. Bernie Sanders is an independent senator from the state of Vermont who does caucus with the Democratic Party and unsuccessfully ran for the Democratic nomination in 2016. And he will be against President Trump on the Republican side. So first off, we can go ahead and put some states which will definitely go into the Democratic column. On the West Coast, states like California as well as Washington are very liberal, and Hawaii out in the Pacific is considered safe blue. In the Midwest, I would say that Illinois is the only state that I will say is safe here, as really most of the other states are toss-ups. As New Mexico, I think, is safe blue, and Colorado, I will say, leaning Democratic, but it is likely that the Democratic candidate in general would have an edge in that state. If we move up here to the Northeast, I do think that many states here are also going to definitely be in the Democratic column. States like New York, Delaware, New Jersey, Maryland, as well as the Washington, D.C. district would definitely go to the Democrats. I think that if we fill in the same thing in the Republican side, Alaska would definitely go to President Trump. In the West, states like Utah, Wyoming, Idaho, and Montana are just really speaking safe red. Throughout the Great Plains area and the western side of the Midwest, I do think that a lot of these states like the Dakotas, Nebraska, and Kansas would definitely be safe red as well. Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, now moving more into the Bible Belt side, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky even, and moving up further towards the Midwest, West Virginia, I think that would definitely be states that are in the Republican column. I think that states that would lean Republican, that would still be considered safe, would be Missouri as well as Indiana, as Indiana does have a strong conservative voter base and is the home state of Vice President Mike Pence, and Missouri has been trending Republican in recent years. I think that South Carolina would also be a state that would probably be safe and leaning Republican, as it has a long history of voting in the Republican side. Though that those numbers are slowly changing, I do not think that Bernie Sanders would be able to flip this state. I think that if we look at state like Georgia, I do think that because of a growing minority population in Georgia and a quickly diversifying electorate that we're also seeing there, that by 2020 we could see larger numbers of minorities, especially in large metro areas like Atlanta, come out and vote for the Democratic Party and really close that gap, which has really been, slowly narrowing between the Democrats and the Republicans. And I do think that Georgia is a state that we could see flipping in 2020. I think that if you look at North Carolina as well as Virginia would remain in the Democratic column. I think Virginia would be more on the safe blue side, as it is trending Democratic. Even in the state level, Democrats are crushing it. Democrats did excellent in the gubernatorial elections in Virginia, and they have been winning considerable amounts of votes there in the past few presidential elections. I think that if we move back down here to the South and Southwest, that Texas would remain in the Republican column, mostly because, yes, even though Texas is seeing tremendous demographic changes, and changes in their electorate, I don't think it would quite flip. I do think that Texas will flip at some point in the 2020s and go into the Democratic column. But the thing is that Texas has had a long history of voting Republican, and if you look at the margin by which Democrats are slowly closing the gap every 4 years with Republicans in Texas, though it is narrowing, I do not think that it is going to narrow as fast in 2020, as Texas still does have a large white American population that will still form the majority in the electorate. Though by 2020, Texas will become a Hispanic majority state, with Hispanics becoming the largest ethnic group, I should say minority majority state, similarly to California. I do think that Democrats would carry Nevada, as Bernie Sanders, as well as his previous Democratic challengers like Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton both won this state here in Nevada. And Nevada has been seriously trending Democratic a lot in the past few presidential elections, safe to say really in the past decade. I do think that Arizona would also remain in the Republican column. This is as Arizona still does have moderately conservative and reliably Republican white suburbs, which are still really forming a large voter base for a lot of the Republican candidates in Arizona. I do think that coming up here back into the northeast side, I think that Bernie Sanders would be able to pull off a victory in New Hampshire, though New Hampshire does have quite a strong libertarian population as well, more on the right. I do think that it is a state that is obviously Democratic, and though Bernie Sanders would probably not win the state by the margin he would win, say, Vermont, I do think it would remain in the Democratic column. I think that Maine would definitely have 4 of its electoral votes going to the Democratic column, if not at least 3, as the 2nd district is somewhat conservative and Republican, as President Trump won the 2nd district back in 2016 as well. I think moving into the Midwest, Iowa is a state that is much more agrarian and agricultural compared to its other states such as Wisconsin, Michigan, and Ohio, as it doesn't have larger industries and has a much larger rural population in its electorate which would prefer Donald Trump. I think that if you look at Minnesota, this is a state that will remain safe Democratic back from 2016, and Michigan, I think, would be a flip from 2016. It could very well be a close race, but given President Trump's incredibly low approval ratings in the state, and the fact that he won the state by a very small margin back in 2016, I do think that this is going to be a big problem for the Trump presidency, as Sanders is already at 279 electoral votes, putting him over the top, becoming the next president. I think that states like Wisconsin might remain in the Republican column, as well as Ohio. I can definitely see Pennsylvania flipping. And in terms of Florida, I think Florida will also be a flip from 2016. The reasoning behind this is as you're seeing that President Trump's approval ratings are dipping very fast, and Democrats are starting to take serious advantage of this in the state of Florida, as it does have a large minority population, mostly of Cuban immigrants as well as Puerto Ricans coming into the state, and they have really changed up the electorate in Florida as well. And I do think that their votes are going to start to matter more, as they are the dominant group in a lot of the major cities and more populated counties, which really form the backbone of really any Democrat choosing to run in Florida or attempting to win in Florida. And so I do think that Sanders would win with 328 electoral votes to President Trump's 210. Like and subscribe for more content. I do appreciate all the support I can get. This is, again, as I said, a new channel. And let me know what you think in the comment section below. Do you disagree or do you agree with me?